It requires a great deal of faith to be an atheist these days, with science uncovering almost every day new evidence for the unimaginable complexity of a nature finely tuned to produce life. From the structure of the cosmos to new revelations about DNA, modern science leaves little room for anything but creation as a product of divine intelligence. I'm Michael Quinn Sullivan with a reflection on life and liberty. As those who followed my podcast for a while know, I spend a lot of time looking at how the science of archaeology is regularly revealing the historical accuracy of Scripture. But as it turns out, the rest of science is in on the gig too, demonstrating how nature itself points undeniably to the reality of God. Consider first poor Charles Darwin. His theories and those of his followers were based only on what they could see, and it was often an unbelievable mess. He described it as absurd, and that's his word, that the eye could have resulted simply from evolution. Absurd is how a lot of evolutionists have come to quietly and privately characterize a lot of evolution. Things are just too complex for the pat, Big Bang, here we are theories of the 19th century. For example, knowledge of the importance of DNA was nearly a century in the future when Darwin first offered his ideas to the public. Consider this. A single strand of human DNA can hold 215 million gigabytes, or 215 petabytes of information. In comparison, all the data in the Library of Congress amounts to just 15 terabytes of data. What do gigabytes and petabytes and terabytes mean? Well, think of it this way. One strand of human DNA contains more than 16,000 times the data of the Library of Congress. That kind of complexity should knock your socks off. It turns out Psalm 139 wasn't just poetry. Quote, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." For evolution to make sense, one has to also assume the individual subcomponents of the world's most advanced supercomputer could be set in a box, shaken, and emerge not only fully operational, but able to produce all your favorite music and books. Good luck. But at least Darwin had the humility to admit his own theory, which in the last century has been elevated to a religion, didn't mesh with the complexity even he could see in nature. The complexity he couldn't see would have driven him mad. Darwin's successors are endlessly rewriting the theories of evolution and often simply dismissing inconvenient facts with a wave of a neoprene-gloved hand. They have an irrational faith that someday science will validate their disbelief in a creator. They're destined to wait, unhappily, for a long time. No matter how hard they try to sand the corners, the square peg of their theory for life doesn't fit in the God-rounded hole of reality. Biology is bad for those who reject God, but cosmology is worse. At one point, the God deniers clung to the view that the Bible was wrong because the universe had always existed. This was the hashtag science position for centuries before there were hashtags. But as our ability to view the universe went from looking through crude telescopes to watching data derived out of the far reaches of the electromagnetic spectrum, that idea has collapsed. To keep God out, cosmologists now retreat into obscure and unprovable realms of mathematical models to describe multiverses in a vain attempt to explain the complexity of existence. Some go so far as to seriously suggest we are but simulations in a matrix-like computer game created by some other randomly created being in a universe we can't see. All that to avoid God. Talk about faith. The words of Psalm 19 are found to be more true every day. Quote, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork." From the operations of subatomic particles to the location of the Earth and the Milky Way galaxy, from the speed of light to the weight of quarks, every single detail of the universe had to be just right, or we simply wouldn't exist. If any of this interests you as much as it does me, I encourage you to check out the work of Stephen Meyer at the Discovery Institute. What we do now know absolutely is that this universe had a definite beginning. From that beginning, this universe has been finely tuned not only to produce us, but for us to be able to discover the wonders of creation. God spoke, and the universe sprang into being. His living words are literally encoded within us and etched in the stars. Heaven and earth are full of His glory. If you like today's Reflections podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate it, leave a review, and encourage your friends to listen. The Reflections podcast is presented by Texas Scorecard, and today's edition was produced by Luke Marshall in the 1836 studios. I'm Michael Quinn Sullivan. Thanks for listening.